25th October 2025. So, in about 2006, I fell back into retail in 2006. I fell back into retail about 2006. It was worked at Gola at Broadway, and 2006, 2007, 2008, yeah, and they were, so I partied a lot back then. It was with the ex, partied a lot, maybe 5 to 6 days a week, and it was a bit wild back then, and I've been through a couple of pairs of leather pants, and in fact, look, these are the more recent ones, these ones here. Oh, by recent, I paid $10 for these in 2011 in somewhere in Enmore. Maybe I paid $12. You find these now in a Vinnie's and they're going for about $75. Vinnie's prices are outrageous these days. I'm just checking pocket for $100 bills. I was not smart enough to do that. I bought those in 2012, 2011. Now the ones I had a previous to that, very similar to them, and how I fell back into retail was with the ex. So I would go to meet her after work when she finished, and I would do that 2 or 3 times a week. And what happened was that her bosses would always be there, and they'd be polite to me and nice, and then eventually one day they went for drinks downstairs and invited me, and I got drunk with her boss, or I got him drunk. This happened for a few months on end. They got to know me, and then what happened one day was, so the boss called me one day. There was 2 bosses at Gola off Broadway, Frank and Steve. Frank called me up and said, we need somebody. He called me up and said, I need you to come in today. He said, I need you to come in today. And I was like, what, huh? He said, we need people for stock taking. And I said, I've never done that before. He said, oh, look, we're kind of desperate. Can you please come in? So I did stock taking. I'm cutting a very long story short here. I did stock taking. I did it well. I did a few shifts of it. And then I got invited for it, and I thought that was the end of it. Then they invited me in for a regular shift. I thought that was the end of it. They said, no, you did so well during stock take, and we need staff, and we know you, and you were good, and I did that. Literally fell into it. 1 day a week turned into 2, 2 days a week turned into 3, 3 days a week turned into 4. I was, ended up being full-time there. And that's how you get in through the back door. And what happened was, because occasionally the boss Steve, who my ex got along with well, and who was my ex, and I got along very well with Steve and Frank, very well, and it was almost like not working, and I think that's the reason why I did it. It just didn't feel like work. We had to get the job done, but there was just it was very casual, relaxed, and a lot of joking around, but you had to get the job done. So there was a particular night that had been out partying with the ex and her friends, who had become my friends, and gotten drunk. I had my leather pants on, and I had my leather pants on. I was still drunk, and I just happened to rock up to, well, I wasn't rostered for that day or anything. I didn't think I would get rostered. I think I would just turn up, or the boss of Steve would say you're on tomorrow, or Frank would say you got the next 3 days you're on, but that'd be every day. Anyway, I turned up one day, and I wasn't rostered for that day. I turned up, or I was at the Petersham house. It could have been I was at the Petersham house with my leather pants, and Steve must have said to my ex, they asked me to go in. And so I'm in leather pants. And he said, we need you to get in here. I had no time to change. So I rock up at Go Low Broadway 2007 in leather pants. And it felt really weird. And they said, oh, you're here, fantastic. And I did my shift in leather pants. And no one blinked an eyelid. I don't know if no one noticed or whatnot. There was a few customers that approached me for a few things, and the entire shift I felt awkward. And I think I mentioned it to someone. I think I mentioned it to one of my workmates. I mentioned to someone, I said, all weird today. They said, oh, who are you? I said, leather pants. And they're like, you're wearing leather pants. I'm like, I was partying and I was still drunk when I turned up to the shift. But they didn't really care because I just knew them. So I turned up drunk to the shift. My boss said, and Steve said, oh, you were partying last night. I said, I was partying. I wasn't expecting to work today. He said, yeah, oh, can you help me? Can you work? I was like, yeah. And they said, oh, you're wearing leather pants. I'm like, I haven't even been home. And so I did think, and the customers are none the wiser. And I tell you what, it wasn't the most comfortable experience. They were lightweight, semi-lightweight leathers. It wasn't the most, it was an extremely weird experience. And what was also weird was sobering up at work. That was weird. And yes, so I spent the day in retail in leather pants. Do you know that 99% of the people I see on the street, like when I was at Aldi today, 99% of the people I saw would go to the light, they would get reincarnated. I looked at them all of them in the store, all the customers. They would have the life review and be reincarnated. Unaware, haven't woken up, unaware, completely unaware. I think that if you asked most of them what they think about reincarnation, they'd be a bit like, because the archons have everybody enslaved. That's the way they want people, dumbed down, docile, dumbed down. They control the masses. Control the masses. So what's the weirdest thing you've worn to work that you really didn't have too much of a choice about it? What is the weirdest thing that you've had to wear to work and no one noticed? Because your boss called you in when you weren't home or something, or you just hadn't been home, you had no time to go there, you just had to go straight to work. What's the weirdest thing you had to wear?